Yep. And you have time to get settled in a little bit. Okay, we are live, commissioners. I'll call the meeting to order in about a minute. County team, are we ready?
I believe so.
Okay, Ms. Warden, we ready?
Yes, sir.
With that, I will call to order the second. If you've got your microphones unmuted and you are virtual, please mute them. I would be grateful, as would everyone listening. Call to order the agenda for December 8th, 2020, Cass County Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Sherling? Mr. Breitling? Mr. Peterson?
Here?
Mr. Steen?
Here.
Mr. Pollack?
Here. Again, as a gentle reminder, if you have your virtual hat on right now, put your virtual mute on. I'd be grateful. With that, Ms. Warden, if you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Those of you viewing at home, please Google an image of your flag or stare at the one on the screen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Heather. Commissioners, presume you had a chance to review prior meeting minutes, so look for motion to move, approve, amend, or discuss. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and second, the meeting minutes to be approved as presented. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Order of the agenda. I do not believe we have any amendments that I'm aware of.
Chairman, move to approve the order of agenda.
Is there a second, please? Moved and second, the order of agenda be approved as presented. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consent agenda. Commissioners, we had a chance to review the prior submittal of the consent agenda. If so, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second, please? Second. Moved and seconded, the consent agenda be approved as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherling? Yes. Mr. Breitling?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Pollack?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, commissioners. With that, we now have time for some public comment. I don't see too many people online right now. No one in the studio audience here locally that wants to comment. This will be the time if you're not on the agenda to address us for a couple minutes. Again, not seeing anybody, so we will proceed to our regular agenda. Item 1, Vector Control Board application. I don't know if Mr. Prather wants to lead us out or Mr. Wilson, whatever would be prudent. I am just fine either way. Ben, would you want to handle it, my friend?
Take a few moments and discuss.
Thank you, sir.
So we have two very qualified applicants, I think, in front of you.
I agree.
Dr. Eaton is someone that I've known for better than 2 decades now. He's a business owner in the city of Fargo. He does live in the city of West Fargo, has some deep family roots here, and has actually mosquito control experience as well. Our other applicant, I am less aware of. I've never met personally, but has been a civil servant to the city of Fargo and is an attorney, which in the past week and a half maybe would have been a useful guidance there. But at the same time, I am more than happy to accept any of those questions or either one of those nominees. Dr. Eaton did message me earlier today or called me today at my office and said that he was unable to be on the call this afternoon because he was in the middle of a root canal. So nonetheless, I'd be happy with either candidate and welcome any questions if you folks had any.
Thank you. Commissioner, any question for our Vector Control Commander? Commissioner Sherling.
In what capacity did the doctor work in the sector?
Oh, well, Dr. Eaton was a biological field aide, a seasonal employee. So he was at the university, or Concordia University in Moorhead, and was doing research. I can't remember the doctor's name over at Concordia, but was doing basically what our lab does now, and came over after he had completed his research projects at Concordia and worked in our laboratory for, I think, 3 years or something like that before attending his dental school.
And what is the current makeup of the board?
Mayor Tim Mahoney is our chair. Dr. Joe Reinhardt is a scientist PhD who has studied mosquitoes and insects and continues to with his career at North Dakota State University and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Also a West Fargo resident.
How many members?
3.
Commissioners, any further questions? Commissioner Pollak.
Not a question, just a comment, and that would be, I don't know which individual is going to be selected, but for the one who isn't, we'd sure welcome you on some of the other appointing positions that we have, including on the Planning Commission, the Cass County Planning Commission, and we have various other vacancies. So I sure appreciate the interest that's been shown. Thank you.
Any other questions?
When do we have to make this decision?
Today, sir. It's our intent. And in fact, any questions, Mr. Prather? If not, I'm going to jump to Mr. Thornton, who's online virtually. Welcome to your courthouse virtually, sir. You don't have to speak. I wanted to make sure you both had a chance to address the commission if you so chose. Again, don't feel compelled to. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you want to participate, volunteer your time for what is, as of recently and in the recent past, an incredibly important position that may come with some undue stress. Mr. Thornton, if you want to address the commission, please do, but again, do not feel compelled to if you don't want to.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I don't know many of the commissioners. I do know Mr. Burdick quite well. He's known me for 15 years or so. I'm willing to serve wherever the commission would need. I think servant leadership is important. I sit on the city council of the city of Mapleton. That's where I reside. But I certainly have a background in the legal field with respect to regulatory compliance, how that impacts things like environmental law, how that would impact things like potential liability. I know that there were some recent incidents, and I think you alluded to those. Those are certainly important considerations. I've got family that are farmers, and I'd be interested in serving either on vector control or any other board that you think I would be qualified for, and there is a vacancy for. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions for our candidate? Outstanding. Okay, sir. Thank you again for your time. Commissioners, now it's time to act. We have 2 applications.
Hey, you're not leaving, are you?
No, sir. I'm going to go to Commissioner Steen, then Commissioner Sherling.
I appreciate Mr. Thornton's willingness to serve, which is great. Any thoughts? I mean, I'm just asking an open court here. What other boards we haven't filled?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Ms. Warden, I think you can go from memory. I think I could take a guess too, but you're better at
I know that there's one still on the Southeast Human Service Center board, but I think that we have that filled.
How's our planning ET?
Planning ET, that's initially what Mr. Thornton applied for, but he applied for the Fargo ET, and he lives in Mapleton, so he didn't qualify for that.
Oh.
Cass County Planning is full too. We don't have any openings on the Cass County Planning.
Okay.
So, I think we might have an opening on the School Reorganization Board, but it's supposed to be somebody from District 3, which is Rick's district. So,
Park District, I know we had Brandy Pyle. She's been pretty regular attendee.
we found another person to serve on the Park Board as well, I believe.
We should
Yeah,
double.
that's recent.
Yeah.
We just did that, so,
Oh, that was just right.
remember?
Yes, shoot. Okay.
So, no, yeah. Mhm. We're full on that. I've looked, so. Yeah, there aren't any openings on the county planning board.
Well, we've got a spot for you somewhere, whether you like it or not. You may get a letter finding out that you're serving. Congratulations in anticipation of your appointment to some board that you don't know that exists.
It wouldn't be the first time that happened with the State Bar Association or.
Usually people that don't show up that wind up being the president, so.
That's happened too, so.
Commissioners, any further questions for our candidate? If not, we're going to move on to discussion regarding the appointment to this position. Outstanding. Again, thank you, sir, for your time. Commissioners, your thoughts on what action we should take today? Commissioner Pollock and then Commissioner Steen.
I move that we appoint Dr. Eaton to the Vector Control Board.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, Dr. Eden be appointed to the board. Any discussion? Commissioner Steen, please.
I thought we had two great applicants for this position, and that's what I'm thinking. We have another position available for whoever isn't assigned at this point. I think Dr. Eaton is probably, because of his experience in bugology, whatever you want to call it, is a good candidate for the board.
He's been smiling under his mask.
Trying.
Okay.
Commissioners, further discussion? Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Pollock,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Sherling, Brightling.
Yes.
Motion passes. Mr. Thornton, thank you again for your time. And if you are being serious regarding your desire to serve, we will be in contact, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before Ben leaves, I have one question that I would like to ask him.
Commissioner Brightling?
I have to ask this because my wife told me to, and I'm not going to go home for supper if I don't. Do you spray after dark? Ariel,
Have we or did we?
can you?
Well, there's a number of factors that come into play when you're looking at the aerial application. Yes, it's possible. The challenges of that are primarily is with air temperature and humidity. So as the sun sets, especially this time of year, late August into September, we start seeing not so much at the front of the application. If we were to have sprayers on directly at sunset, that wouldn't be a problem. It's just where we're at 2.5 hours from there. So there are requirements to be above 50 degrees, which is usually pretty manageable. The challenge is then is whether mosquito activity is high enough to warrant, to continue to go. So when we look at these applications, that's a major factor. Of course, the mosquito biology is dictated by the weather, the temperatures, and so forth. But we also got to consider, what the physical, manifestation of the application is. We're sending 2 aircraft at treetop, 200 feet, 210 plus miles per hour, carrying Jet A fuel and thousands or hundreds of gallons of insecticide. So we have a significant number of tall buildings, high mast lighting, obstructions with cranes from construction things, and certainly there are more risks as you move into the later evening. And just as an example, we've all seen the C-130s in Williston who work on a contract basis for those folks on occasion. They'll never spray after dark. They only spray for even adult mosquitoes in hurricane or disaster response situations. They're not authorized to make those applications after sun has set. So we try and line that up as best as we reasonably can. But I think in this instance, the adult control application, when as specified, there seems to be no errors. We've gone through the spray systems and everything else, and it followed our protocols, our timing and everything to a T. So something we're looking at closely, but I don't have a clear answer as to why the Monarchs maybe took a bigger hit this time, other than my colleagues at the American Mosquito Control Association are fairly ardent that this shouldn't have happened if it was done correctly, and we know it was. So we'll see.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anything else on item 1, commissioners? If not, I'm going to proceed to item 2. Here we go. Item 2, Fargo Protection Center Project. Mr. Gilmore, I see you on the line. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
What we're up to, please.
What we have here is an application for the payment in lieu of taxes program. It's a low-income housing project that will be located on the corner of 4th Avenue North and 7th Street, immediately west of the Sanctuary Event Center. That helps give you a landmark for where it's at. Site is currently vacant except for one older house. The challenges this project faces, as is with all low-income housing projects, is there's limited rents that you can charge because of the financing. This would be financed through the low-income housing tax credit program, yet your costs for construction and property taxes without exemptions are the same, so that becomes a challenge. This particular site also, it's difficult in the downtown. These downtown sites are great in the long term, but there's problems with staging, there's power lines, there's demolition of a house and a parking lot that would be required with this particular site. The city, in order to help this project, has already contributed most of the land for the project. One property had been owned previously by Beyond Shelter. As we've looked at this project, we did send this to our financial advisor, PFM, Public Financial Management. They note that the project would simply not be feasible if it had to pay all the property taxes, if it didn't have any type of property tax exemption. In order to get low-income housing tax credits, it's a very competitive process, and so they look, are the local governments providing some sort of support? And so your support is needed not only financially, but also a show of support for this application. With these payment in lieu of taxes programs, this application through the city would provide a slightly lower property taxes that would need to be paid than if the state was providing it through their program. So I think it's just several $1,000s a year, but it's very important for that. The property up until recently was owned by the city of Fargo and was tax exempt. So with this project, they'll actually be paying more than had been paid previously. Our tax exempt review committee fully supports the application and has recommended approval to you, as well as to the city commission that'll act on this at 5 o'clock. Dan Madler's on the line from Beyond Shelter, and I'll have Dan tell you a little bit about the need for the project, how many people are in need of this type of housing, and can answer any specific questions about the building. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. Mr. Madler.
Well, thank you, Jim, and Chairman Peterson and members of the commission. I just want to thank you for your time and consideration of Beyond Shelter's pilot request. Just for the record, my name is Dan Madler. I'm the CEO of Beyond Shelter Incorporated. Beyond Shelter is a Fargo-based nonprofit developer of affordable housing. And I'm here today virtually with Lisa Rotgold, the development director, and currently the lead developer for the Milton Earl, the name of the project. In your meeting packet, there was a project information sheet that basically had architectural rendering of the building on the cover. It was a 2-page sheet, and it provided additional project details. The building itself, it'll be 42 units, 4 stories, 36 one-bedroom units, 6 two-bedroom units. 9 of the units will be fully handicap accessible. It'll be a 62 and older building, and thus there's quite a bit of designed community space to create a community for their senior tenants. We have a community room, a craft recreation room, fitness room, a library, computer lab, and a rooftop patio. Parking would be ground level and under the building. Currently, we're assembling the financing packages. As Jim mentioned, the main financing piece would be the low-income housing tax credit program, and it's very competitive. And the pilot plays a very significant role, not only in the operational phase of the project, but also showing that local community support. The tenants, project-based vouchers, we're currently working with HUD to transfer and preserve 15 project-based vouchers. Basically, the annual contract that we would be preserving is valued at a little over almost $14,000 a month, or approximately $165,000 a year, or $3.3 million over the course of the 20-year contract. And so those are dollars that we're hoping to capture and preserve and save for the community of Fargo and Cass County. And with the HUD document and the paperwork, One of the things that we'll be required to do is bid the project, and so HUD procurement will be required. Let's see here, the amenities that we also offer basically allow tenants to age in place, and so one of the things we'll be providing and working with local community is a tenant support coordinator that'll basically help with non-medical activities and daily living. A little bit beyond shelter, you know, we're an agency a little over 20 years old, based here in Fargo, and to date, we have developed 521 affordable homes serving the community. Are closed on the financing. We actually have 39 of that 521 under construction right now. And of the 521 homes, 325 are affordable senior. And so the page 2 of the handout, or the project information sheet, what was meant, it's a combination of photos of not only community space and apartment living, but also the project beneficiaries. Who do we serve? Who are we serving in our senior community homes? A little bit of demographic information on the homes here in Fargo. The average age of our tenant is 72 years old. The average income for our tenants here in Fargo, $17,500. Or if you break that down into an hourly rate, that's $8.41 per hour. Our tenants contribute approximately 29% of their income for rent and utilities. And right now, that average dollar amount for monthly rent is $423 a month. One of the unique things about Beyond Shelter is who we serve, and it's really shown in our senior projects. Of the 325 units, 70% of the units are occupied by households that earn less than 30% of the area median income. Kind of reflecting back, you know, that for a one-person household, 30% of the area median income is just a little under $19,000 a year, or about $9 an hour. For a two-person household or a couple, it's just a little over $21,000 a year, or $10.33 an hour. And as I mentioned earlier, our average tenant is at $17,000, which is below both dollar amounts. And so that kind of gives a little flavor of who we're serving here in Fargo. Some other details about the project, like Jim mentioned, you know, the project is located just west of the sanctuary. It's a quarter block, or about a half acre, and 4 of the 5 lots were donated by the city of Fargo, and that's allowing us to actually do a project in the downtown area. And also in the packet, you'll see on some of the financial information, Beyond Shelter is a nonprofit developer, so our lifeblood is developer fees. And as in the pro forma, we are earning a developer fee for the project. It's currently forecasted to earn about $1.25 million, with $250,000 of that deferred. And just a little comment about the developer fee. Essentially, that gets paid over the course of 3 to 4 years, and as the developer, Beyond Shelter essentially will get paid last. But one of the things that I like about the nonprofit model is and it really shows significant economic impact, not only to the communities we serve here in Fargo and Cass County, is what do we do with the dollars that we earn, the developer fee. To date, over the course of 20 years, we've been able to reinvest that into our 16 projects here in Fargo, Cass County. And total development costs for our residential development are $68.5 million. We have done some projects where we rehab some units above commercial, and commercial development was about $1.7 million. So in total, we have reinvested our developer fee that we actually earn back in the communities we serve, which allows us to basically really focus on serving that 30% AMI household. The senior projects allow our tenants to age in place. We have conducted a neighborhood meeting, and just want to basically thank you for your time and consideration, and both Lisa and myself are available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Matt. Commissioners, any questions? Mr. Pollock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is probably for Mr. Gilmore, although, anyone, I guess, who knows. You know, on the pilot, payment in lieu of taxes. So who does the payment go to and when and how is that billed?
The payment would go to all the taxing jurisdictions, would get their respective percentage of that taxes. Essentially, your county auditor can probably explain it a little bit better, but essentially the value is set at a certain amount, and the tax bill then based on that, and it's distributed to all the taxing jurisdictions based on their respective mill levies.
So essentially they receive a tax statement from the same,
Yes.
in lieu rather than the property tax?
They would receive the same property tax statement that that you and I would receive. It's just that the tax is calculated based on the set schedule rather than the mill levy and the value of the property.
All right, thank you. And one more question, and that is this converted? Are you able to convert this to market rates at some point in the future?
I believe the requirement from the state is that it stay as low-income housing for at least 30 years. Is that correct, Dan?
That is correct. And as a nonprofit developer, basically we're looking to produce long-term community assets that are affordable, and we see that the ownership of the property long-term, basically the life of the building, and basically with capital improvements, hopefully 60, 80, 90, 100 years we'll get out of the building.
Commissioners, any further questions? Commissioner Reitler.
I noticed that the CFM analysis lists categories 2 and 3 as both acceptable. Can you tell me what the difference is?
The number 2 is what we're asking for. You can see, and number 3 is if they were to not receive this pilot from the city, they can actually apply to the state for a pilot that would be very similar, but then they wouldn't get the match points and their property taxes would be slightly higher. They probably both work financially, but if the option 3, they probably won't get the tax credit.
And just to add to that, so the North Dakota State Pilot is an annual application, and so you have to apply for every year and meet certain benchmarks. And to underwrite a project of this size, our investors and our lenders want financial certainty, and they like to avoid risk. And so we've designed the pilot request based off of avoiding that risk, basically setting a schedule for 20 years. But at the same time, it's also mission driven on who we're serving and how we're serving, and trying to basically keep our rents as affordable as possible because of the fact that we're serving extremely low income households.
Thank you.
Commissioner Steen.
Chair, you normally have comments on this if didn't, I was going to have a motion, but go ahead.
So thank you, Commissioner Steen, for knowing my issues. So I actually spent probably almost an hour with the design team here and development team, I want to say a week or two ago. And obviously my concerns are always a constant. It's developer fees, it's why we're doing a project, it's where the money's going outside the circle of friends, so to speak. And I think that I'm actually quite satisfied with this. I think the hour was beneficial for myself, certainly. I don't know if they got tired of me talking and listening to me, but it is what it is. So I thank you for your patience with me. But I think one of the things I've talked about in the past is how the projects are developed. So we can always judge architectural engineering, or I can actually say architectural engineering fees. I think they're too high. But if you look at some of the specifics about this, things like development fees, we've seen people come in with, I'm trying to find what page I'm on here, 6.7% fees. They're at 6. And again, if you remember the Edge 2, I think is what it was. They came in at 7.5 or 7% for management fees, which is what it is. I think it's ridiculous, but whatever. In this particular case, they're at a market rate. The 6 is the right number. Their vacancy rate is maybe a little bit high. I think they're at 7. I can't find where the sheet is. I think they're at 7. But again, it's going to be pretty low because turnover in these places are going to be vacancy rate 7%. it's gonna be pretty low because this is a needed thing. I like what they do with their development fee. They put their development fee back into their team, back into the next stage, into the next step. And most importantly, because of the restrictions that's placed upon this crew, like our friends over in West Fargo and their last big project, our friends at CAS, they're stuck having to publicly bid this. So we have developers that come in here that own the development company, own the management company, own the marketing company, and all they do is spin the money in a circle and tell us how great they are. Well, I guess I'm mad because I'm jealous, right? In part, and that's part of it. I'm not going to lie there. But the second thing is, I don't think they're being intellectually honest with us either. They should come out and say, yeah, we're going to make $3.5 million on this. Stop. You don't like it, build it yourself. I may not like that, but that's the reality. Whereas this team is coming forth and saying, here's the reality of where we're at. Again, these are a little bit high here and there, but for the most part, they're stuck having to do what they're doing. I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in just the practical nature of it all. Plus, things like management fees are reasonable. Vacancy rates, not unheard of. So again, this is a project I'm actually for a myriad of reasons. And again, I appreciate their team tolerating me in my discussion for that hour or whatever it was last week. So that's where I'll stop, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, I also got the opportunity to spend about an hour, I think, with Dan on the phone and had a fair number of questions and good answers for all of them. Made a lot of sense to me. So with that, I'd like to move to participate in the request for payment in lieu of taxes incentive for a low-income housing project submitted by Beyond Shelter for a 20-year period.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion, Commissioners? Commissioner Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one of the areas that I've decided that is worthy of having property tax relief is low-income housing. And on that basis, you know, I support what we're doing and what you're doing here. It's something that's needed, and I think that it's a noble cause. I too struggle with the development fees in a project. I appreciate where the bulk of them end up, you know, after they're received, but I'm in favor of what you're doing, and I support the motion.
Commissioners, any further discussion? Not? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Sherling?
Motion is approved. Thank you, team. Best wishes on this project. Get us some homes for our friends that need it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thanks,
Thank
Joseph.
you. Thank you, Mr. Gilmore, and your team in Fargo, too. Item 3, proposed wind farm near Air. Mr. Litchfield, I see you on virtually. I don't know if you can hear me, and you were. Let me just check here. I thought you were.
Yeah, he's on.
Somewhere. There you are. Mr. Litchfield, welcome to the Cass County Courthouse.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Absolutely. Let us know what you're up to, please, sir. You have the floor.
It's good to be with you virtually. I'm willing to share my video. I got an error message, I think, saying the host rejected it or something, but certainly able to talk just through our slides. Are you viewing the slides, or should I share those?
We have them within our packet, Commissioners. You can pull them up. I think most of us have them up already. So you can just proceed. I don't know if we can share it virtually, Terry. You might be stuck.
Tell us where you're at.
Just page 1, right on agenda item 3. Can you do a share screen, sir? Oh, no, he's calling. We have it, sir. Proceed.
Okay. Well, attempt to share it.
Yeah, we see it.
Now we got you.
All right, good. Again, thank you very much for your time today. My name is Dan Litchfield, and I'm Director of Renewable Development for Invenergy. And also joining me on the line is Cooper Johnson, who works with me on our Midwest development team. And I wanted to introduce a wind energy project we have planned in the western part of the county. We work for a company called Invenergy, which is headquartered in Chicago. We've grown quite a bit since our founding in 2001, and we are now the world's largest privately held sustainable energy developer. We've developed over 160 projects, the bulk being wind, which is what we are producing or proposing here. And myself growing up in a rural agricultural economy in Ohio, I'm proud of this work because it's a great source of economical, clean domestic energy and rural economic development. Our projects are significant positive for agricultural landowners as well as rural governments that based on the tax revenue that our projects generate. I'll go to slide 3. This touches a bit on our wind portfolio, which is the #1 category of the projects we have developed, which now, so we're since our history founding in 2001, we've developed over 15,000 megawatts of projects. The bulk of those are in operation now, but there are a number of projects we're actively building and then planning to build in the years ahead. We don't consider this Air Wind Energy Center quite in that category yet, but we're hoping it will be in time. One of the things that's unique about Invenergy is that we are also an owner-operator. Certainly at times we will sell projects if utilities or other folks want to buy them, but we develop our projects with a long-term owner-operator mindset, which I think is important because we want the projects to stand and last the test of time. I'll go to slide 4 of the PowerPoint now. So this just highlights some of the benefits of our track record. And every year, in 2019, our tally was $260 million as far as local economic benefits in the forms of wages and benefits, landowner lease payments, and then state and local taxes. We also do a fair amount of charitable giving and employ quite a few veterans, and we've won an award for that. Our company is now over 1,000 employees and over 10% being veterans. So that's a bit of an overview on our company and who we are as a team that's coming here to propose a project in your county. Now I'll talk a bit more about the project specifically. We're calling it the Air Wind Energy Center. We're planning on 150 megawatts of capacity. So to put that in perspective, that's enough to power about 60,000 average U.S. homes. This would create roughly 150 construction jobs during that period of time. And long-term, over a 30-year operating life, we estimate $58 million injection into your local economy. And that's in the form of temporary construction benefits, but mostly the long-term landowner lease payments and tax revenue. If I go to slide 6 here, I have a map showing the general area. This is not the western edge, but certainly in the western part of the county. We are currently seeking voluntary leases from landowners in Buffalo and Air townships. I expect when we are said and done, we'll have probably about 15,000 acres of leases. But when eventually built, the project will have a footprint of less than 100 acres. The turbines themselves have a relatively small footprint, just about a 13-foot diameter steel tower coming out of the ground and a little turnaround area for a pickup truck, and then a gravel road that gets to them for maintenance purposes. We'll also have a small substation probably next to the existing substation. And that's one of the reasons we chose this area, is that it's the intersection of a lot of different things that we look for in our projects. We have begun environmental studies on the area. Nowadays, to build a project, we need to gather data for 2 full years to understand what species are using the area and what implications they might have for our construction plans, and we need to adjust our plans accordingly. Our first year of studies show that the site is relatively clean from an environmental perspective. Doesn't seem to be a lot of endangered species use, nor is it a major migratory corridor like sometimes we see along rivers or on some of the higher prairies and ridges in the state. This area is mostly agricultural land, and so we think there's a good fit. We're also working with the grid operator and transmission owner on studies on interconnecting to the grid. In a nutshell, anyone can connect to the grid to sell power, but you have to study your impacts first and agree to fund any upgrades that are necessary to maintain the reliability and safety of the grid. And so we're about midway through that now. We should have additional results that will be a little more definitive, but not final, by the end of this year. or early next year. And that really lets us know, if to put things in farming terms, what our electrical basis is. So farmers grow corn and then they sell their corn, and the price they get, a lot has to do with the basis to a major trading center or price difference on the wholesale market. Same thing with electricity. And then finally, research-wise, what we're doing are wind studies, and we, in basic terms, build power plants where the fuel source is the wind. So we need to know how windy it is and which direction it comes from, and that allows us to efficiently site the wind turbines. So that's what we've been up to. I'm gonna go to the second to last slide here, slide 7. This just gives you a rough timeline. We still have quite some road ahead. We're currently thinking that we'd be in construction in 2024. And so there'll be a number of conversations to follow in the years ahead. And right now we're working on those aforementioned studies, talking to landowners, and we're going to be talking with the townships that we would seek permits from them as well as from the state in order to construct the project. One of the townships has an ordinance that we find problematic for siting turbines. And so we're going to be working with them and asking them to consider some modifications. And then if all goes well, we probably, in the next year or two, begin that permitting and then be in construction in 2023 or 2024, and then online by the end of 2024. Things could change, and I guess there's a chance it gets accelerated, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to come talk with you today, to make sure you knew this is out there, and if there are questions commissioners have or you hear of from your constituents, we'd very much like to hear about them and answer them. And so I'll just display the last slide there with our contact information and pictures. And I realized I spelled development wrong, which is embarrassing. Sorry about that.
Any further, sir?
Sorry if that was a question to me. No, I don't have anything further. I'm just happy to take your questions if you have them.
Okay. Commissioner Sherlin and Commissioner Pollack.
Thank you, and thank you, Dan, for joining us today. I visited with him a few weeks ago and suggested that he come and explain what they were doing at the other end of the county. Dan, would you like to discuss what the possible impacts are on county roads during construction?
Sure. In a nutshell, we will bring a lot of equipment in to build the project. Obviously, the very large components of the wind turbines, but and those require some temporary widened intersections to maneuver. But we also often see damage to local roads more from the more pedestrian roads or loads, gravel trucks and concrete trucks. And so it's very normal for us as we get closer to construction to negotiate with local authorities to come up with a road use agreement that will require some pre-construction surveys to understand the condition of the roads, and then have a requirement and often a guarantee that we have to repair the roads to that condition or better. So I had a call with your county engineer last week to introduce that concept. I think we're quite a ways off from being able to negotiate such a thing because we don't know where turbines exactly will go yet. But later we'll be in a position to present a map of which roads we'd like to use and come up with a plan to make sure that you have no expense associated with our use of the roads, and we are making them whole.
Commissioner Pollack.
Thank you. This is Commissioner Ken Pollack speaking. How much do you pay the farmers or the landowners for the site per tower?
Well, good question. Thank you, sir. We generally prefer not to discuss the commercial arrangements in great detail, but I can generalize that we want to create an opportunity that's a win-win, and so we need to incentivize the landowners that there's a new crop that they can yield. So we have a lease structure that's based on acres that are involved in the program, the size or number of turbines that get installed on any property, as well as the other facilities, the access roads and the underground power lines. And it all kind of wraps up that if you end up having a turbine on your land, you could probably earn $8,000 to $10,000 per year. It depends. But there'll also be parcels that don't have turbines but are still very valuable to us from a setback standpoint. That's a big factor in the siting. We want to make sure the project is a good neighbor, so we'll adhere to large setbacks from houses and roads and power lines and things of that nature, and definitely property lines for people who choose not to participate. And so we're trying to create a program where people, even if they don't get a turbine, have an incentive for letting us harness the wind flowing over their property, even if it flows to a turbine on someone else's property.
And how about the local taxes that are paid, property taxes? How are they determined on a wind farm?
Yeah, the state has a program on that it's a function of the size of the project. In our case, 150 megawatts is our proposal, and how much electricity they generate every year. So if they're more productive, efficient turbines, then there's more tax revenue. So our early estimate is $675,000 per year. And our understanding is that goes to the county. Honestly, we're still learning exactly how or what kind of sharing mechanism there is between the county and host towns. But it would be based on current law, $675,000 per year.
Okay, and finally, my last question is regarding the transmission capability. You implied that you have the ability to connect with local transmission so that no new lines need to be built. Did I take that correctly?
That's the plan, yeah. There's an existing substation there in Buffalo Township. We have requested connection to that point, and then there's studies that are ongoing. Our high-level plan for the project is a number of wind turbines. We don't know exactly what model, so we don't know how many, but roughly 30 or 50 turbines in this area that would be connected with underground lines that gather the power and bring it back to that existing substation.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Bartley. Mr. Litchfield, what is your status with the North Dakota Public Service Commission?
We currently have no status. We will need to apply to them when we have a plan that is ready for review. I personally worked on permitting projects with a state level board in 5 other states, but not North Dakota. So I don't personally have that experience, but our understanding is that the state likes to see us obtain local permits and then apply for state permits. So we're going to work with local government and the host towns and Cass County to the extent you want to be involved. And when we're a little more advanced with our studies of the project area as well as our land, we'll have a plan to present to you. And if that is successful and proceeds, then we'll create that status and process with the State Public Service Commission.
Any further questions, commissioners? Outstanding, gentlemen. I sincerely thank you for your time. Best wishes on your project.
Thank you very much.
Number 4 on our agenda, Western Cass Flood Insurance Study. Lewis, not sure if I see. There you are. You are here.
Good afternoon.
Floor.
As we've discussed over quite a number of years now, you guys, the county commission has funded 50% of the costs incurred on this Western Cass flood insurance study in the amount of $103,782.07. And at our last meeting, we talked about seeing what the estimates would be to do the letter of map revision work that's needed to complete this process. And we've submitted the estimates to you now. And I'll let Kurt Lisney address that because I'm sure if there's questions regarding that, he can address those. So.
Good afternoon, commissioners. So the estimates get through, we've had several meetings with FEMA and they've outlined the process to get to the finalized, what this would be is revising their preliminary maps. The Western Cass flood insurance study is currently preliminary. It'll set to be effective, they're telling us sometime next summer. So what this process does is it corrects some errors that are on the current preliminary map so that when those do come out in a year or so, that there's something that the county can stand behind. There are numerous errors up in the Noble and Weiser Township areas, as well as the map for the city of Arthur, that there was a lot of objection to the way those are mapped. So this gets us to the finish line on how those looks. The estimates are based off those conversations with FEMA. The Arthur proposal is a little more expensive than the other one because there wasn't any modeling comments on the Noble and Weiser Township one, so that's purely revision submittal paperwork with FEMA and getting those through. The Arthur one, they wanted us to switch the way that the city was modeled, even though we used the same model that they used to develop the preliminary map. They've requested a urban stormwater model, so that cost is on that proposal, as well as the $8,000 review fee that FEMA charges when there's a project involved, and they're considering the pipe. There was storm sewer improvements through Arthur that the County Flood Sales Tax Committee participated in. They're calling that a structural improvement, and so they're proposing that the county has to pay an $8,000 review fee on that. So with that, I can take any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Pollak.
Well, you did answer the one question that I had. I was wondering about the city of Arthur. But is there any local investment in the insurance study project? That would be, say, by Arthur or by the townships?
To date, there has not been. The county and the Cass County Joint Water Resource District took this on, and it was kind of viewed, this started way back in 2013, and at the time, there was errors throughout the city of West Fargo, there was errors throughout the townships surrounding West Fargo, and there was these township issues out in the rural parts of the county. And so the Joint Water Resource District at that time took on the challenge to try to get these maps fixed. And since that's a county-wide representation, they took that challenge on. So to date, no, there's no agreements with the city of Arthur or with the townships.
Okay. And this is a question for my other commissioners. Is this an appropriate use for the flood sales tax dollars? I saw it was referenced in the material, but I didn't see that it was resolved.
I thought, Commissioner Sherling, I'm staring at you for a reason. I thought we discussed this, and maybe Commissioner Steen, you might know, but I thought we discussed this specifically.
The answer hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And I don't.
And the answer is?
We did, if you recall, the meeting minutes referenced, I think, in our packet. Yeah, I think they're in there. We talked about that, and we tried to finagle. Commissioner Sherling, your thoughts?
Yeah.
Commissioner Steen.
Just a question. So we're asking, they ask us for 50% of the cost, correct?
Correct. Ms. Lewis, that's correct, right? That's what I'm reading.
That's correct.
Commissioner Steen, please.
I'll make a motion to approve a payment up to 50% of the total costs of the proposals for more engineering.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and second. Any discussion? Commissioner Pollak.
Where does the money come from?
General fund? Mr. Montplaisir? I see you on the line. I don't know where else we'd get it. We don't have a designated fund for this, do we?
We don't. I was just gonna try to research where we paid it in the past.
Should we wait for you, or Commissioner Pollak?
It doesn't really change anything. We always seem to have the money.
Well, and our neighbors, right? Are you gonna, can you pull it up quick, Mike, or?
It might take a little while.
Okay, we'll skip. Thank you. Just let us know in the future sometime, maybe during committee
It
reports.
amounts to half of roughly 53,000.
Yep, that's correct.
26,492, I think. Half of it.
Commissioners, any further discussion? Any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Sherling?
Yes.
Brightling?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you, virtual team. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Item 5, PIQ updates, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, a little earlier this afternoon, the Personnel Overview Committee, you were part of the group that reviewed and approved changes to a number of the PAQs. These are actions that came out of the budget hearings earlier this summer, as well as a standalone discussion of coroner's position prior to that. So we're looking for your consideration to regrade 4 current positions and concur with the grading recommendation of 2 new positions. And I'll go through them individually. The first is the coroner position. This is new as a full-time position. The previous coroner is recently retired, served in a part-time capacity, and moving forward, a job description has been developed. That was submitted to our consultant, Gallagher, came back with a recommendation that be rated at a D62. There were a number of questions that you and other committee members had during the Personnel Overview Committee meeting a little earlier this afternoon, and I guess I would use that as a segue into any questions or comments that you may have for me at this time.
Commissioners, questions for Mr. Wilson? Continue.
Okay. And again, I would look for, if you'd like to act on these as a group, I'll go through them individually. Okay.
I think we can. I would rather you can go through them, but then we should act, I guess. Commissioners, what do you want to do? I think act as a group. Do we care?
We've already acted once.
Okay. Very good. Moving on, the second position is a payroll clerk. This is a new position created during the budget hearings. The job description was submitted to Gallagher. They came back with a recommended grade of a B23. Moving on, the next 4, the discussion during the budget hearings centered around these positions being significantly lower than the market median as part of the salary study that led into the consideration and adoption of a new pay matrix. So the first one of the 4 is the Veteran Service Officer position. Current grade is a C42. The recommended grade is a D61. The next position is the Human Resources Director position. Current grade is a D61. The initial recommendation was to go to a D62 through some follow-up conversations, because this was one of 2 positions that was most significantly deviant from market median. The ultimate recommendation was to move that 2 grades from a D61 current into a D63. Next position, and again, these were discussed at Personnel Overview Committee a little earlier this afternoon. Next position is the Information Technology Director position, currently set at a D63. Initial recommendation was to move that to a D64. Follow-up conversations, very similar to the last discussion with HR Director, moved that ultimately to a D72. So current D63, ultimate recommendation moved to a D72. Final position is the County Recorder position, currently at a D61, and after the review, recommendation was to move that to a D62. So those are the 6 that you're being asked to consider accepting the PAQ recommendations. Last point I would make before I turn it over to any questions is that in addition to considering and approving the new pay matrix, you also allocated a sum of money, $100,000 specific to addressing these 4 positions that were most significantly off of the median, according to the market study that led to the updated pay matrix. With that, I would turn it over to any questions you might have for me.
Commissioners, questions? Discussion, a motion. Commissioner Pollock.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the PAQ recommendations of Gallagher Benefits and incorporate the position grades into the county pay matrix effective on January 1.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? I guess from my perspective, I think the main lift I wanted to accomplish this budget hearing, prior budget hearing, was taking care of the friends that we have and neighbors that we have at our lowest ranges. I struggle with the constant acceleration of the top. I think the one thing I want to get on the record is that I think we need to acknowledge there is a top of pay for people, and I don't know where they're on these. I don't know if these are that out of whack, but these are getting to be real numbers that will be accelerated into the future into perpetuity, with the exception of payroll clerk and things like that. But that's one thing I struggle with, is that we can't. It's always easy to say yes. It's always hard to say no. So, any further discussion, commissioners? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Pollock,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Sherling, Brightling,
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes. Motion passes. Coronavirus update, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, got a number of things to cover through the coronavirus update today. I will try to move through quickly, but obviously we'll have some information to provide to you and would anticipate some questions. First thing I want to cover is the funding. And as you know, we've talked about this several times in the past. There's a formula that's been developed through the Association of Counties, the League of Cities, and the State Office of Management and Budget that would provide CARES Act funding to county governments through a formula of reimbursement for licensed peace officer payroll costs over reimbursements over the months of March to September. The initial payment was received the last week of August, and that covered the months of March to July for Cass County. That amount totaled $4.313 million, roughly. There's another payment that is expected sometime in October to reimburse for payroll expenses of August and September. Previously, you've identified a number of potential uses for those funds, and at the last commission meeting, I showed you a table very similar to this. Your direction to me was to refine these numbers, to come back with you with updated cost estimates. And I can tell you that in the last week, have a number of updates. I'll just run down this list and look for any questions that you might have. Obviously the big expense there is the jail intake expansion project, and that cost has increased substantial. I wouldn't say substantially. Has slightly from the initial figure that we had. Original number was $6.225 million. The current estimate now is at $6.338 million. The IT equipment and infrastructure needs, $150,000. That remains constant. That, if you want to do a deep dive into that one, I would look to Mr. Schmaltz. But essentially, we have a lot more employees that are working virtually and meeting virtually, and we've got some firewall needs, some security needs, and also some capacity needs that are encompassed and can be accounted for with that $150,000 cost. Negative airflow cells is a project out at the jail that just simply increases the number of negative airflow cells they have. That is important for the jail, as they have new inmates arriving who may be positive, or they may be in a status that they're not sure of yet. That when in their diligent efforts to prevent COVID from entering the facility, they are quarantining or monitoring inmates for a set period of time to make sure and identify any potential positives before moving them into general population to prevent introducing that into the jail population. If they have cases that are COVID positive, or in any other time, if they have any other infectious disease or condition, you would also want to utilize negative airflow cells to prevent spread across the inmate population. Obviously, with COVID, those negative airflow cells are getting much more use, and they have a capacity issue, and this would account for that.
Commissioner Shirley.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no.
Am I the only one that's just going nuts here with this echo?
I'm hearing it, but is it on where?
Not mine.
So I have,
Speakers are muted.
so I have an idea on my computer. I had to turn the little speaker off, that there's a little speaker coming out of the box on the floor. And so on the desk speakers, on the desk computers, if you make sure that your speaker is off, that may alleviate it.
I'm always muted.
Right click on the speaker on the bottom right side of the screen, or left click on the bottom of the screen on the right side.
Thank you.
I think it just went away. I turned the speaker down. Thank you.
That's why it was worse where you are.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well, that's what I'm thinking. Why is everybody just cool with
Oh, I
that?
was,
Because North Dakota
trying
night,
to find where it's coming from.
Fixed it. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson, keep chugging.
And absolutely.
Right.
Moving down to a couple of the courtroom projects. You asked us to look into a couple potential courtroom remodels. One was a combination of courtrooms 303, 304. This would not be a venue for criminal cases, but would be a venue for civil cases. And there's been a number of conversations between State's Attorney's Office, members of the court, and others that this appears to have some real value. The one just above that, courtroom 202 / jury room, combining does not, through our conversations, appear to have as much use, at least on the feedback we're getting from the court system. I'm getting a look from Commissioner Peterson, so maybe he would want to offer a different opinion.
Keep going,
That's
Mr. Wilson. I'll get to it.
That
But you
was
were
my
getting a look from Commissioner Peterson.
that was my impression of the conversation. And then the final one is ITV equipment at the jail. This would allow the jail to improve their interactive capabilities, holding court hearings virtually, where rather than a defendant having to be transported to the courtroom, to the courthouse, they can do some things interactively. You'll notice back up about halfway through that block that the ITV courtroom 201 line item has been crossed out, and in some follow-up conversations with the court administrator, that's no longer needed, because on a state level, they are utilizing some different technology that they would be providing on their own. And so that need no longer exists, but the cost to upgrade to the fully interactive equipment on the jail side would be needed. So the first of several updates is that I would be looking for some action or feedback on this list of proposals, and I anticipate that you probably have some questions before getting to that point.
Commissioner Pollack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to talk more about the jail intake expansion project, but not right now. IT equipment and infrastructure. Did I see that was something that we budgeted for in the budget already?
No.
Mr. Schmaltz, it's not within our current general budget, but within the CARES budget. Yes, Mr. Schmaltz.
Okay.
I think
Does that make sense?
yeah, I think maybe what you're referring to is next year we budgeted to replace the wireless system
totally separate project.
Okay. All right, thank you. Negative airflow cells. Since this has come about because of the COVID crisis that we're in today, I question why we need to do that at all, since the COVID isn't aerosolized. So I understand the benefit of having the negative airflow cells, but is it really needed here?
Yes.
Explain why.
So maybe I'm not understanding what you're saying, but essentially what's happening is that you've got someone COVID positive and it's all respiratory, right? And maybe that's what you and I are communicating very well, but essentially what you do is you breathe it out and anyone around you can get it. What you do is vacuum all the bad air out. There's a case, one of the initial big case studies done in Wuhan was a small restaurant. They had a small restaurant, I think it seated 35 people. Exposure for 2 hours, 75% of the people within the restaurant got it because the HVAC was on, which is why when we have hot air down south, we're going to flip. So when winter gets here and we're all inside, it's this that kills us because it sucks it up and spreads it out. I'm just telling you what, I'm on call 3 days a week, Commissioner Pollack.
Yeah.
And if we don't alleviate the air in terms of negative pressure, meaning I'm not going to share that air with my neighbor, that's how it gets spread. The worry is that if we don't have that within a pod, one could argue this should be done at every pod. Like, I forget, I just read an article, what was it? Oh, school districts. So the Fargo Public School Districts are increasing their fresh air flow into the facilities by 25%, up to 25%, because they need more fresh air recirc, because if you recirculate the bad air, one kid in one classroom is going to make the kid next door sick because they all share the same HVAC system. That's the problem. So what you do is you bring in more fresh air. That's going to cost millions of dollars in heating expenses and HVAC expenses over the coming year, but the reality is you're going to pay more to heat cold air, so what? Commissioner Pollack, my fault. Go ahead, sir.
That's all I had, but I mean, what you said didn't convince me of the need for the negative airflow cells.
Did you want to go down the list, sir, or is that?
No, that
Okay.
was the last one that I had.
Okay, let me just jump on the look thing. So the one item I would propose removing from this list is the courtroom 202 jury room combo. I think it's a good idea. There's a member of the judiciary that thinks it's a good idea. That's the one I thought was a good idea before, but we're not getting any support from anyone else. So while I think it's ideal, why kick and scream? If they don't want it, so be it. That would free up $341,000 more. And again, I don't think that you've got any pushback from the judiciary, as Mr. Wilson said. So with the exception of one, maybe two quiet members and myself. So that would be an easy elimination from this list in terms of what I would recommend. Commissioner Pollack. Commissioner Shirley.
I'm just curious why they didn't fuss about that one. Just what's the story?
Politics, I'll leave it there. That's all I would say.
Because it really isn't an ideal, is it because it's not an ideal situation, or?
Mr. Chair, members, Commissioner Sherling, as I recall, that doesn't really help them, because right now it's a fairly small courtroom, and then you've got a big jury assembly room next to it. They need that that large jury assembly room as a deliberation room right now. If you're talking strictly COVID, the jury assembly rooms that they have now for the cases that the jury trials that they're using aren't big enough to socially distance. This room is big enough that they can socially distance. In a larger sense, the value of that combination that I've heard in the past and has been discussed in the past is that with this remodel, that space could have multiple uses. That if it had some type of a removable wall, you could have one much larger courtroom, or you could have a smaller courtroom, and you could have a jury assembly room or another meeting room. At least as I recall the conversations from the presiding judge, if you were to combine that into one large courtroom, it's long and narrow. And so it doesn't, for whatever reasons, it's not conducive to the ideal layout of a courtroom. So that was That's the feedback I took from Judge Rasek, where that even at, number one, currently it's needed as the jury deliberation room in addition to a jury assembly room, but it also, for lack of a better term, the bang for your buck isn't all that great from a courtroom operations perspective.
And that's for 202?
Yes, sir, the 202 jury combo, 341.
Well, I would say, Mr. Chairman, I would say that if we don't have the support of the presiding judge, it would be a mistake to keep it in there.
And maybe I can just, commissioners, if I can just cut to the chase, what I'd like to do is exactly what I inferred during our last meetings, essentially make the easy decision of accomplishing all I've been calling them mini projects, the removal of 202 jury combo, but the remainder of the mini projects, approve them right now and get them done, or get them started anyway. And then we can have a dialogue regarding the jail intake expansion. And what I'd like to do there, again, is what I said before, is we've met with the architects, met with the construction estimators, construction engineers, what do you want to call them, and get those drawings done to a state where they can actually be bid. Because what I had hoped was that the initial estimates, and I'm just going to talk for 2 seconds, I don't mean to babble, but what would happen is essentially we're running a 24/7 operation to get this thing done by December 31st, that I thought there would be a premium in terms of savings when we went to a schedule that allowed them to get done at a reasonable pace rather than a hectic pace. Interestingly enough, they came back and said, gee whiz, gosh, no, heck golly, in fact, it's actually gone up. So you went from operating 24 hours a day, literally, there's no other way to accomplish the mission, 24 hours a day to a normal schedule, and there's no savings, no premium. I struggle to believe that. It is what it is. We're presented the project budget. It is what it is. So that, to me anyway, validates what I would like to see is, let's go out and get an estimate, get the drawings done, allocate resources enough for just the fees, not the project, to get the project cost, so then we can make an educated decision as to where we're short. Because in theory, if this estimate is right, and we remove the 341, we're 1.2 million short, which is a huge number, but it's not insurmountable if the commission wants to proceed. It's still a big number, but it's not insurmountable. And I hope the economy recovers. I hope oil go back to 60, 70 bucks a barrel, and this project costs $7 million, because then in the end, it's better for all of us because everyone has jobs again. I'm not seeing that happen. Bidding this thing in January, when there's going to be no work on the books, you're not paying the premium for construction. Commissioner Pollack, then Commissioner Shirley.
No, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Commissioner Pollack, please.
So as I look at this jail intake project, and I haven't been over there to look at this, but you know, this is 20% of what the jail costs, 15%. And is there a way to scale this back to arrive at a more manageable number?
So if I can address that, Mr. Wilson, do you care? I think getting a baseline cost and then backing it down, because what I'm hoping is going to happen, that's not the right way to phrase it. What I think and believe is going to happen is that when we get the drawings done, we bid this thing January 7th in the middle of winter when COVID's spiking up here and everyone's still looking for work because it's not going away because we don't have a cure for this thing yet. The price will be so palatable for us to accomplish the mission we've drawn that we're going to get it built. But let's pretend it does come in at 7 million or 6.4 million. It's pretty easy for us to go in and, as you're saying, Commissioner Pollack, for a minimal investment, pull the scale back. What can we get rid of and still get us close to making sure the sheriff and all our deputies, our local law enforcement community, our U.S. Marshals, our COs, and our convicts are safe?
How many square feet are we adding?
Offhand, I don't know. It's a big number though.
Like 100,000?
No. The cost of construction in public facilities is horrendous.
Square foot?
Yeah, horrendous. I mean, but remember, so like if we were to build a new, if we were to build a jail pod right now, it's going to be a pod, not the facility, a single pod. We're spending $14 million.
We're spending half of that on this, so it must be a sizable structure. So which to me says maybe if we're spending the money on the drawings, we should be including Plan B right from the get-go.
We could investigate alternates. I don't know how simple or hard that would be, but that's not impossible. I do alternates all the time.
It's just a huge number, and it's just a number, and it's hard for me to reconcile the importance of it.
And that's what I'm saying. I think we take the mini projects and go. There's no hurry on getting this jail intake done in terms of drawings, because we need to bid it in the best time possible for taxpayers, and that's in January. Not right now for construction. Let's pretend we had drawings done right now, we'd break ground, we'd building all winter. We're gonna pay a premium for building all winter. Heating costs, all those things. Better to wait. People are hungry in January. Best case scenario, break ground this spring. So waiting a week or a month or two, Commissioner, it won't matter. But for little projects, I think, without objection, like I said, I've not heard any resistance from staff. I've not heard any objections from the commission regarding those. Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Pollack, just a little bit of background of where we came into this project to begin with is that of all of the projects that we had heard from the sheriff's office that were needed, this was the one that had been consistent from the time that I came on board. Is that just because of the volume of people that come through the sheriff's office, through the jail, through the number of different things that are available now to inmates, whether it's a different type of diversion activity, whether you're booked into jail or you go on to some other program, you're booked and released. Between the volume and the different things they do, they needed more room. They just needed more room to begin with. And on top of that, the COVID experience, where now pushing everybody into a smaller square footage to do all of that processing, you've got a health and safety reason to expand that. We already, going into 2019, we had a space needs study that was budgeted for and completed to identify the appropriate size, the needed size for this. And so that was
for an intake area.
Yes. So that was done end of 19, wrapped up, I want to say December. And so then that was essentially shelved at that point, not knowing when we would be able to financially move forward with that project. As COVID became a factor and social distancing, that became a sort of an obvious look that, well, this is a need that we have, that we're funneling a lot of people with doing various activities through a pinch point of a physical space. We were already looking at the need to expand that, relied on the square footage and the estimates that were taken into account on that initial space needs study to kind of pull through the initial cost estimate and also the size and square footage elements of the design.
I don't question at all the need for the project. I just think it's just gone wild.
And that may have been more background than you were looking for.
But again, Commissioner, to what I was referring, this isn't something that needs to be made today. So we can all educate ourselves and understand this better, and whether we back it down or accelerate.
Are you ready for a motion on this?
Commissioners, I am, but.
I have a question.
Commissioner Breitling, please.
There's a suggestion for motion on the back of this sheet.
Yes.
Does that include the $25,000 for the, it doesn't explicitly include the courtroom social distancing?
It's not included.
That, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Breitling, you are correct. That is a number that we were working from initially. We have some of that amount is already accounted for up in expenses incurred to date, because that one of the areas where that was reflected is it was a specific discussion. You had a number of meetings ago, involving some audio equipment in courtrooms. So I am not requesting you act on that 25,000 amount, because I also don't have specific estimates for you on that one. The ones that are listed in the suggested motion are ones that we have specific estimates for.
What I understand, Chairman, to suggest is that we adopt this motion plus the preliminary design drawings needed for the super project.
That's what I would like to do, but again, I'm just wondering.
I'll move that for purposes of discussion with no other reason.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, discussion.
We should have a number. We should have a number of what the drawings would be.
So,
An estimate, I should say, or a budget.
Mr. Wilson, right now we've got the 200, but
Mr. Chair, members of the board, that would be a follow-up question I need to have with our architect, because we do have $200,000 that was budgeted for and is being utilized, has been utilized to develop construction plans. Now, what we need to move from the plans that have been developed to date using that $200,000 to get to preliminary design that would be ready to go out to build. There's a bogey there, and I don't know exactly what that is.
I think we're far closer than we think we are.
I think we are too.
Given that. The 200, if you recall, is previously budgeted, so that's not an actionable, it's already allocated towards this specific project in this year's budget right now.
I think we're, if not there, we're very, very close.
So that we understand, a motion then would be for roughly $550,000.
If you don't mind, let's just look at this list.
Yeah, let me do some quick math.
It's the 150, the
Christine hasn't done it already.
The 338 and 6.
Yes.
39.
That's,
But not the courtroom social distancing.
that's correct.
Correct.
That's roughly $549,000.
Commissioner Pollak.
And on the side of discussion, I would like you to ask why the negative air cells are required for the COVID. I would just like to understand that, because if I'm misinformed, I'm misinformed, but I'm not aware that we have that the disease is aerosolized and that it travels through the air. It travels from the spit.
Mr. Wilson and I, or whomever, we are charged with explaining that to you in a better, more clear way. Commissioners, any further discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Mr. Pollak?
Yes.
Mr. Sherling? Mr. Breitling?
Yes.
Motion passes. Do we want to talk about jail intake beyond what we've done, or continue on to what's next? I would say continue on to what's next, but that's just me. Mr. Wilson, keep chugging.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, one question that has been raised in a couple of different settings that really would just look for your direction on is we've had an inquiry from one of our local partners. Obviously, we have policing contracts with a number of municipalities in the county, cities of Horace, Castleton, Kindred, Mapleton, and the school districts, Central Cass, Northern Cass, Maple Valley, Kindred, and Mapleton have either a policing contract or a school resource deputy contract. And included in that amount of law enforcement payroll costs that are reimbursed to counties for the...
Law enforcement payroll costs are being reimbursed by these entities, right? That's what you're talking about.
No.
They're being reimbursed by who?
The formula...
No, it's not, we're not being reimbursed for law enforcement costs. The formula is driven based on law enforcement costs. We are not being reimbursed for those costs.
Correct.
Correct.
It's a mechanism for
It's
funding,
clear what
not a specific, and this is what Mr. Wilson, it's a mechanism for redistribution of the dollars. It's not specified as such.
Correct.
Yes. Yes, correct. That's why we're having this debate, because we need to have this debate. So
There you
Mr. Wilson, continue, please. Commissioners, does that make sense?
Yeah. The mechanism that is being used and has provided funds to the county. Separate from that, obviously you have the law enforcement contracts with the local municipalities and the school districts. And those entities pay you, pay the county, pay us for some policing services. There is a question has been raised. Does the county wish to provide any reimbursement back to or payment back to those partnering entities corresponding to the amount that is paid to the county for the time frame in question that the mechanism that the state is using?
So where this came from, essentially, we got a phone call from a city saying, where's our money? And the explanation is this, again, as Commissioner Steen said, the implication was not a direct reimbursement for law enforcement expenses. If that's the case, we have a pretty big jail. We have a law enforcement center. We have a lot of activities that we do beyond salary. So if that's the case, our number gets way bigger really fast. But I thought it prudent, because of that phone call, to do two things. First of all, have that discussion here, A, and then B, we can't just do it for one city that called. We'd have to, in my mind, if we do choose to do anything like this, we have to be uniform in terms of what we do, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease in this particular scenario I don't like. And that's just me, but I don't think just because they called and no one else did, that we shouldn't reimburse. So with that, that was the origins of this. That's why this grew in terms of what this list is. This is where we stand today. Commissioner Breitling and then Commissioner Sherling. Oh, Commissioner Sherling.
Well, so just, what are the costs that they're taking on during this period of time that are above and beyond what they normally have? I know that we've had significant costs in the jail, one.
A little bit.
I would note that school districts are still getting reimbursed per pupil, as they have in the past. I don't know. What about the cities? Do they have increased costs and decreased revenues?
Well, I'll jump on that grenade, right? So there was nothing prohibiting them from asking for reimbursement directly. The logic was, and this is what I heard through the grapevine, there was some, say, tacit support, but some support advocating for this sort of a reimbursement because of how it was laid out from the League of Cities to support us in terms of how this mechanism became a thing. But that said, our friends in Fargo are getting reimbursement, our friends substantively too. This is millions of dollars. Our friends in West Fargo also getting reimbursement for some of their costs. So in theory, to that point, there was nothing preventing any one of these team members here from also applying. I don't know about school districts specifically, probably not for schools, but the top four we have on this list, there's nothing preventing them from replicating what our friends in West Fargo and our friends in Fargo did in terms of, here's our costs, we need additional coverage because that's what this is for, so. Commissioner Sherling, anything further?
No.
Commissioner Steen, please.
I can understand how the question would come up.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, I think if they dig through dig a little bit deeper, where's the county spending the money? It's pretty much all on law enforcement for the county. It's not like we have some money we're supplementing another piece of the budget. There's other costs here that benefit the city of Castleton, city of Horace, city of Kindred, city of Mapleton. They're all being benefited from the fact that we're spending this money on law enforcement currently. We're not just putting it back into our purse and not spending it and doing something else with it. It's all law enforcement related, at least the way I see it for the most part. So I'm not sure which pocket you want to pick it out of and put it in another pocket. It makes sense what we're doing. I understand how the question came up. I think if you explained to them where the money is going, I think they'd have a much better understanding of why what we're doing makes sense.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Steen, and I certainly can have those conversations or in conjunction with any of you. Happy to do that.
Let me read a bit of a brief real quick from our friends at the Association of Counties, a Here's a quote. Additionally, quite a number of small cities have no police departments to pay counties for police protection. As the federal and state goal is to efficiently distribute CARES funds to all impacted counties and cities, it may be appropriate for the county to sub-allocate a portion of the funds. Again, this isn't a promissory note, it's not a contract, it's just communications. It would be appropriate for the county to sub-allocate a portion of the funds the county receives from any contracting cities. Sub-allocation is not a one-size-fits-all and will need to be determined by the counties and cities involved. We don't expect OMB guidance on this, et cetera. So it wasn't necessary, like, again, it's not rigid. It's not implied, but it's not also, which is why we're discussing it right now, it's also not something we just need to ignore. Does that make sense, Commissioner?
Last question.
Yes.
We've had this discussion, I just want to make sure it's on the table. Are we charging the full cost of our services that we're providing to these entities?
Okay, so I'm going to jump on that one with full steam because, again, these are all friends of ours. We support our friends and neighbors. The reality is they're getting a steal of a deal because they're not paying, and this is where Mr. Wilson, I'm going to disclose the conversation you and I had. What I was going to say, if the commission was willing to push some of these dollars down, that was my point, is that when I go to the private sector, roughly, and Commissioner Steen, you're the accountant, but this is my business, well, we're all business owners for the most part. I was roughly 1/3. That's my real cost. Then you have the overhead of 2/3. So if you're making $1, I'd bill you for $3 because I've got $2 of overhead. That's not in this program. So let's pretend we said, you know what? We're acknowledging as a commission there's some stuff that we need to talk about. The most I would be willing to do is 1/3 of this. Because we don't talk about cars, we don't talk about weapons, we don't talk about our LEC, we don't talk about our jail, we don't talk about our courthouse. We don't talk about all the infrastructure and things we have to mechanize this team to go to their cities. So long story short, the answer is no. We don't get reimbursed for vehicles, right? We don't get reimbursed for, the point is that if we were to do this, I would say reluctantly, okay, but it's not this number for the reasons I just mentioned. So with that, I'll shut up. Commissioner Pollock, you have thoughts here? So commissioners, this is any discussion, any questions? Move on, Mr. Wilson. Move on, Mr. Wilson.
Okay,
Thank
very
you,
good. Wanted to brief you a little bit on some of the information technology discussions I've had with Mr. Schmaltz. Again, as we look at response to COVID and we may be at somewhat of a steady state for a period of time to come. We've reached out to department heads, asked what they need above and beyond or different of what they need to this point. Obviously, they're with school back in session for employees who have our school-age children, and we just wanted to make sure that we're still doing and reacting and providing what we need to provide to be most productive, but also follow some of the requirements of CARES Act legislation. And one of the only things, aside from that $150,000 that we already identified and you acted on, about the only thing that we, one of few handful of other things we noted is that in the state's attorney's office, there was a need for a few more positions, legal secretaries, to have a little more equipment for them to be able to work remotely. And really, this was outfitting a number of employees who don't currently have Surfaces with Surfaces, as well as their own scanners, so they can do some additional work at home. Between Mr. Schmaltz and Mr. Burdick, there was a funding source of the state's attorney's asset forfeiture fund identified for providing some of this equipment. And so would look to utilize about $25,000 out of that fund to provide legal secretaries with equipment to allow them to work from home. Not asking for a motion from you on that. That is, Mr. Burdick has been working with Mr. Schmaltz and Mr. Montplaisir on that. That's a point of information for you. And then Mr. Schmaltz has also been working with Ms. Ferguson over in Human Services. That is one department that does have continues to have a significant number of employees who are working remotely. In addition to the employees that are working remotely, the ones who are in the office, Ms. Ferguson has identified that they can do a better job, continue to social distance even with the people who are in the office if they have the video camera monitors mounted with built-in video cameras and sound bars, so they don't have to group a number of people together in a conference room if they have to work a case or if they have to do collaborate in such a manner. There is money in the Human Services budget, specifically technology related. Some of that is going to be, they're going to utilize that fund to provide some additional monitors to make that work possible. Those were just strictly informational points I wanted to bring to your attention as we continue to evaluate ways that we can do things a little better. Final point that I would bring to your attention is I was questioned recently just about the county's mask policy and what are we doing, what are we not doing. Have provided a copy of the current mask policy that was adopted as of May 5th, and specifically would look to have you look at point 4 and really just explain that what in practical terms what is happening now is as visitors enter the courthouse, deputies at the front desk are offering and encouraging visitors to wear a mask. If they decline or refuse, that is being understood that that's an indication that the individual is unable to wear the mask and they're not pressing the issue at that point. So that is more just make sure you're 100% aware of how we are interpreting and enforcing that policy. And if you would like us to proceed in a different manner, wanted to bring that to your attention.
Anything further, sir?
Nothing further from me.
Commissioners, any questions regarding anything regarding our COVID status with Mr. Wilson? If not,
Motion, Robert.
anything else? If not, we'll move on to item 7. Mr. Montplaisir, flood diversion transfer sales tax dollars. I think I still see you, sir.
Yes, our flood sales tax is holding up pretty good. We have a suggested motion allowing us to transfer $1,508,789.98 to the city of Fargo as fiscal agent for the diversion authority, and that's 94% of our revenue for the month.
Commissioner Pollock.
I so move.
Is there a second? Moved and second. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Breitling?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Schirling?
Motion passes. That's it on that one, Mr. Montplaisir, correct? That's it. Okay. Item 8. Vouchers. Commissioner Schirling, please. Vouch for the vouchers. Is there a second? Moved and seconded, also vouching for the vouchers, says Commissioner Steen. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Commissioner Schirling? Yes. Breitling?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Dean?
Yes.
Pollock?
Yes.
Motion passes. Committee reports, Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm going to be very brief today. Would just make one comment and do as much or as little with this as that you want. Our IT department does a fabulous job keeping us connected and keeping working through the virtual meeting realm as much as possible. We had a couple of connectivity issues today. I don't think they were anybody's fault, but people were using different devices to connect, lost the connection, got connected back. I would just throw it out for your consideration. would you be interested in all of you being issued and utilizing county services? So we are working off of one platform, everybody using the same device, and bring some simplicity to this. I understand Mr. Schmaltz has not heard this before. It's an idea that I had as we were working through some of those committee meetings today. So if you give me a flat no, I'm happy with that, but I would just simply float the idea do you think that would be an appropriate use of resources? Because I think there could be some value to it.
Schmaltz, what is the surface cost?
$1,300 around there.
Commissioner Pollak?
Well, the real question is if it solves the problem.
Well, I think it will. I mean, there's always difficulty working when people bring in personal equipment. And part of the problem we ran into today was we're trying to connect to one of our networks, and the whole purpose of the network is to keep it separate from everything else. And so you run into these security issues when you get personal devices. Now
That sounds like a yes.
yes, but your computers that we put up here, you guys had laptops up here before, and those things never left the office, and we made a decision to put in what we have, and that's what you guys got. But now situations change between January and March. So if we have to adjust things to make it more effective for you guys, we can certainly do that.
Well, I'm doing everything I can remotely. I mean, clearly you guys have seen that I'm here to set the agenda. Otherwise, I go virtual on everything. But for me, it's working. The only problem I had was not being able to log in. That was a setting by somebody. So once that setting issue is resolved, my phone works perfectly fine. My iPad no longer works. That's because it's a capacity issue on my old iPad, but not your fault.
The problem is when you bring a personal device with the intention to connect to county resources, which is Teams.
I know.
We do that with our phones.
Yeah, but you're running over cellular. You're trying to connect to the county network.
I'm less than thrilled to drag around two computers. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say that. And, I got a MacBook Air, drove my curse. But, and I hate to see him spend $1,500 on something that's gonna,
Well, the other problem is Commissioner Breitling and stuff, he comes in here expecting to participate in the meeting. Of course, there's no cameras and microphones on there.
Which is why I bring my personal
Right.
computer.
Oh, you're bringing yours. Okay. I didn't know that.
And it's worked other days, but it doesn't work today.
Mine's been working at home, it just didn't work today here. Well, it did work for a while.
So when I'm on TV with the city's plural, I should say, I'm on my station at home too, I guess. But I've got that technology in my house, so it's not that big a deal.
Every meeting is a different snafu almost.
Well, and every meeting is a different platform. So, I mean, it's Net something and Zoom something, and Teams something, and, depending on who's hosting it, it's all these various platforms.
I would think that this isn't a decision that needs to be made here today.
No.
It's something food for thought. And I know I sat here one day and I didn't realize there was no camera, no microphone on the meeting. They could see me apparently, but they couldn't hear me and I couldn't see them. And perfect.
Best meeting ever. Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, again, my point here with this one is not to blindside any of you, including Mr. Schmaltz.
But you are. So anyways, that aside.
Well, that's why I appreciate the comment that it's not a decision for today, but would just raise the issue that it may be something to consider, and it may not be the right solution.
Mr. Chair. Commissioner Steen. Just one other comment too about that. I know we run snafus. I do it all the time with my laptop, and for some reason I connect beautifully to our Microsoft Teams meetings when I'm not here. When I'm here, it's a fiasco. I don't know why. But anyway, and I connect on client with our staff. But the other thing to consider is that over time, and we're probably not well trained on this, but if something were to occur, I'm not necessarily sure that I really would appreciate my personal computer being subpoenaed because there might be some county information on there. And that's goes for everybody. I'd rather just have a county computer, that's all I do on it is county stuff. And I would wrangle with me for that reason alone.
Mr. Wilson, anything further?
Nothing further.
Commissioner Brightling?
Yes, two things. One, Mr. Benson and his staff, along with Mr. Wilson, have suggested a plan as far as considering increasing miles per hour on county highways. What their plan is that they're going to work with Mr. Solon for this month and perhaps a short period of time into October to provide for public comment concerning whether or not we should be doing this. And then sometime in October, they would be back to the commission with input from the public comment and recommendations or suggestions for this board to act upon. Unless we hear from the rest of the commission else, otherwise, we'll continue with that program and with those ideas and schedules in mind. Excuse me.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Commissioner Steen, please.
Friend, I get that great idea. Could the commissioners be apprised of what's actually being presented at these public comment meetings? That would be great. I have no clue what the proposal is, what the comments are. I mean, I just think we should be provided something before these public meetings take place.
With Mr. Solom and Mr. Wilson involved with Mr. Benson's staff, I'm assuming that they'll provide us with information as to when, where, and what is going to be discussed.
That's what I'm suggesting.
As in the past, we've been able to attend those meetings. I think that most all of us have, I think, too. So because I find that valuable showing up at these meetings, and I realize there's 3 people there and then us. But at least we can make the attempt. And my concern is always getting out the word. If you recall our last big study we did this last 2 summers ago, whatever it was, I wanted our planning director to get on the radio. I wanted her to do all sorts of things, and she didn't. So 3 people showing up to these meetings. And we have this decision made because 7 people that showed up had ideas. Not sure.
76th Avenue corridor, was everybody invited to that one?
Well, I mean,
Just recently.
I can't remember. I get invited to so many meetings, and
Because I think it's really important to specifically invite people. I mean,
I have one other item, Mr.
sir, please, sorry.
And that's, a month or 2 ago, I volunteered to serve on the legislative committee for the Association of Counties. I'm assuming that someone passed that information on.
Yes.
Because I received an email from the Legislative Council about a drafting seminar, and I've signed up for it. It's going to be on computer, October 1, the morning of, and there's going to be a manual that's shipped to me so that we can have some information about legislation that we might want to sponsor. That's the end of my report.
Perfect. Commissioner Sherling.
thank you. Well, that's a great segue into, I've had a number of North Dakota Association of Counties meetings, and if everybody, I think you got an email about it today, but 10 o'clock on September 30th, we're going to have our caucus meeting, and we're going to talk about those very items that you'll be bringing forth. So I'm really hoping that we have a good turnout for that conversation. It'll be District 5, which is, I think, 8 counties in this corner of the state. So that'll be our opportunity to figure out what's important to Southeast North Dakota when we go to Bismarck this winter. And, the other thing, and this is just kind of talking also about this virtual technology. I chaired a meeting last week that took 6.5 hours long, and there were 91 people on the call. It was awesome. I logged in and I went to get a cup of coffee and I came back and there were all these little tiny people everywhere, and
They're real people.
the Minnesota Ag Commissioner gave a little talk, and there was a Manitoba Minister of Infrastructure, and people were on the chat and exchanging email addresses, and went really, really well. So I'm looking forward to how our conference is going to go in October. We've been getting some updates on that as well, and I think it has a lot of potential to be well attended and be very well worth everyone's time.
Mr. Burdick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one thing. This commission has had some discussions about some development on County 16 and about sending a letter out to somebody who's doing some development out there with some deadlines. I wanted to let you know that I had communicated with the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund. They are taking a more advanced view of things now than perhaps they did in the past, and think when anticipating possible litigation that it might be good to get their attorneys who might do that litigation on behalf of counties and cities and the like involved in an earlier stage, and said they would be interested perhaps in doing that on this. Now, I can certainly send the letters we've talked about, and we've shared some communication here at the end of the week about further development plans in the coming year or so on County 16. But I think it might be good, I'm just, if somebody has a different opinion, please just say so, to coordinate a little bit more with the North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund, and I can work with Commissioner Breitling on that. He and I had a brief conversation about that before this meeting. If you want to give me some further direction on that, I'd take it, but otherwise I think my plan would be to do a little more coordination through North Dakota Insurance Reserve Fund before we send a letter.
Commissioners, your thoughts? As a gentle reminder, I sit on that board, not to say that I should be involved at all, but just in case we need.
I'm in complete agreement. In fact, I think I'm the one that suggested to Mr. Burdick that we contact our insurer and get them aboard as soon as possible. And I think that's what's taking place now.
Mr. Burdick, anything further, sir?
Nothing further, thank you.
Commissioner Pollack. No report. Commissioner Steen.
Just briefly on the county meetings coming up, I was appointed as the chair of the North Dakota County Commissioners Association Audit Committee. I volunteer enough times trying to get stuck to something.
There you go. You know. Anything else, sir? Mr. Montplaisir.
Just right now, we're all about elections, and I think things are going pretty well. IT has been working real hard on figuring out how many workers we need at each of our vote centers. We'll be open, for the 2 weeks prior to the election, and then the Monday and Tuesday of election day. We've got a little over 30,000 people who have applied for absentee ballots, and that doesn't include the 3 trays of applications we still have to enter. The interesting thing is, everybody is sending out applications, so probably about 30% of those that we're getting in are actually new applications. The other 70% are duplicates. So we still have to go through, look them up, make sure, but it's working. The one thing we're not concerned about is we're getting a lot of applications for people to work the election. So a lot of people who have never worked the election before are volunteering to work.
Anything else, sir?
That's it.
All right. From my perspective, we've been bouncing around doing all kinds of meetings. I'm involved in I am chairing the resolution committee for the County Commissioner Association here later this week. What's my calendar? EDC meeting next week. I'm going to try to hit there's a refugee consultation again. I haven't been able to make those, and obviously with the population being decreased, it's going to be curious to see how that meeting goes, but I'll give you guys a briefing after that. I'll assess meeting next week, and
Those numbers are still,
way down.
but they're limited, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Last year we had two approved.
And the most it could be is 18,000, but with transportation being cut off between continents, it's like 8 people. It's just all but halted. And it's an interesting thing. So the last meeting we had, I'll do this real quick. Last meeting we had, it was interesting to see how the people who interact with that community now have nothing to do. It was strange to me. I don't mean to be critical of them, but it seems as though the population you were working with is still here, right? It's just so you don't have any new people coming in. Why aren't you working with people that are here? Because,
Sounds like.
I don't know, it seems like we sure could be helping people out, but, you know, it is what it is. So it's not where they get their money from. Just am sharing with you what I know, Commissioner. So with that, I'll just stop before I get in trouble. Correspondence.
There is none today.
I just got one question for Sheriff. Any updates on the Career Workforce Academy status, progress?
No, thanks for that. Commissioner Pollock and I both sit on an executive board. We are, right now, we have requested those funds at the end of July. I want to say they went out on the 25th or 20th, late July anyway. The anticipation is we won't know whether that grant has been approved until October. It may come sooner, but probably not till next month. Commissioner Pollock.
However, the plans are under development.
Yeah.
You know, so everything is moving ahead. We have to see where it lands with the grant request.
And also, to that point, those dollars are being allocated out of the public funds, private funds that have been given. No tax dollars are being spent right now. It's all donations. It's like home builders have put in like 25, they put in some millions of dollars, but they've gone through all of their donors and taken a little bit of money from each to proceed. So it's as good as it can be. I mean,
it's a serious group.
Yes, absolutely. Correspondence.
There is none
There's
today.
none. Thank you. With that, item 11.
To adjourn.
For a second, please.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you, everyone, again for your patience. Watching at home. Talk to you next time.